The Tampa Bay Buccaneers looking to get right for Sunday Night Football in LA against the red-hot Los Angeles Rams, a team that has given them plenty of problems in the past. The million-dollar question this week is, how healthy will they be? Some bombshell reports coming out today regarding both Bucky Irving, Chris Godwin, and their injury status for Sunday Night Football. We're going to preview Bucs in LA on today's Cannon Fire Podcast.
I want to hear cannons. Downfield, pull up, ball to the 5, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans does it again. Fire the cannons, Bucs.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Throws up with a head. Intercepted. At the 40. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25. 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Hello and welcome back, Bucs fans, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I am your host, Rhett Matthew. Joined alongside me, as always, it is the return of the Philly Bucs fan, Mr. Evan Wanish. Evan, I am glad that you are back from nursing that hamstring injury. We missed you, man. I know it's tricky. You know, sometimes a week turns into 2, turns into 3. Missed you for a couple of games, but very happy to have you back in the lineup here.
Yeah, I'm just hoping I remember how to do this. So I think I'll get the hang of it. Yeah, but like you said, hamstrings are a little tricky. You never know. I mean, I get out, I feel good, think I'm gonna come back. I get out of bed the wrong way, and it's a couple more days. So it is tricky. You know, just ask Mike Evans, right? So he'll tell you all about it. But yeah, lots of stuff. Obviously, you know, missed 2 games. Lot happened in those 2 games, right? It wasn't like a boring 2 games. Lots of stuff to talk about, lots of stuff to preview today for a pretty big matchup, you know, on Sunday Night Football there.
Before we dive into Sunday Night Football, we do have some injury news and something that people have been monitoring pretty closely over the course of the year. Let's start with Bucky Irving in the running back position, because we're getting more clarity about his situation, but at the same time, we're kind of not. We know that there were some injury struggles with Bucky, but there have been some vague reports throughout the course of the last couple of days here that kind of, I think to some degree, people can put the pieces together on what's going on. We're not going to speculate about it, but I am going to provide the information given. So this is a report that initially came out. I think Joe Bucs fan was the first one to really put it into a story, but they had quoted Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk. He was doing his weekly show with Chris Sims, and he kind of let the cat out of the bag and alluded to some weird things happening with Bucky Irving not being available beyond the injury report and the details within that. So Joe Bucs fan does a quick write-up on it. They run with it. And last week on the Rondé Barber show, Rondé had kind of vaguely alluded to what was going on. So I have the write-up here from WFLA. Buccaneers running back Bucky Irving is not expected to play against the Rams on Sunday Night Football, and his return to game action remains a mystery, according to Buccaneers legend Rondé Barber. On the latest episode of the Rondé Barber show, co-host JB Buno acknowledged Irving's return to practice, but Barber, who has inside access to the team, said Irving flat out will not be available against the Rams. He said, quote, "Bucky is not going to be back on Sunday Night Football. They'll start both Rachaad White and Sean Tucker." He mentioned the pony formation that we'll see both of those guys on the field at the same time, hopefully, and an increased workload for Sean Tucker this week expected to be on the way as well. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But Bucky Irving has missed 6 games, with both shoulder and ankle injuries are the things that are being brought up. He last played in a Week 4 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, where he totaled 165 yards and a touchdown a couple of weeks ago on the Rondé Barber show. Some more details. Rondé said, quote, "Bucky is getting better, but I don't know if we're going to see him anytime soon." He said, "I'm not at liberty to say why. Bucky's got to get it right with Bucky. Is it the shoulder? Yes. Is it the ankle? He's probably better from that now, but there's a lot of things that have to go right for Bucky in the short term, and I don't know if we're going to see him." Buno followed up whether there was a chance Irving could miss the remainder of the regular season, to which Rondé replied, "I hope not." So That's a lot of information, but we're going to try and break it all down here, Evan. The story initially comes out as Rondé says Bucky's not available. What's going on? And then the Florio speculation that kind of creeps out here, I think is adding some more fuel to the fire. We know how speculative people seem to get, and unfortunately, Bucky Irving is a guy who is rostered on many a fantasy football teams this year, so it's one of those stories that's just going to get the attention no matter what. What's going on with Bucky Irving, man? It doesn't sound great, and I think the most concerning quote is Bucky has to get right with Bucky. So hoping to some degree he can, put some of this stuff he's got going on in the rear view.
Yeah, I mean, you ask what's going on with Bucky. I don't know, right? And there's two people, right? It's people who legit do not know, and then there's some people who, and I think this is a very select few. Obviously, the Buccaneers, have a good idea what's going on, but like there's probably a select few media people that actually know what's going on, right? Like, because eventually, if it gets to too many people, like something's gonna get out, right? Somebody's gonna leak something, but you have no idea right now, right? It's all this very vague wording, and oh, he's got to get right, and is he gonna be back in the regular season? I hope so. Like it's a lot of unknown right now, and it's strange, right? Because the angle was supposed to be something where they didn't put him on IR when it had happened, and you sort of thought, okay, that's a positive sign that they didn't put him on IR. That means they don't believe he's going to miss 4 games, so he'll be back soon. Then he started missing some games, and then it came out, well, actually, there's some shoulder damage, and they're actually more concerned about the shoulder than the ankle. Okay, maybe it's a little bit longer, but the Bucs still didn't place him on injured reserve. So, and they still haven't. Like right now, he's not on injured reserve. So that led fans to believe that, and it led media members, to believe that, okay, he's got to be back any week now, right? Like it's okay. Then you get the bye week. All right, this break. All right, maybe he'll be back right after the bye week. Still not back. The next week. Now he's practicing, but he's still not back. And then you come to this, and it sort of seems like this weird, like, my thing is eventually something's going to come out, right? Like, because there's no way that if it is truly something that is not necessarily injury related, there's no way you're going to have your starting running back be out for most of the season and then come back and act like nothing happened. Like, oh yeah, I was injured the whole time. No, you weren't. Like, like you eventually something's gonna have to come of it. So I wonder if there's a certain point they're waiting for. I don't know, right? Nobody. I think unless you're in that building, I don't know if you truly know. But you just hope that everything's okay with Bucky Irving and whatever situation he may be dealing with.
Yeah, and to be honest, I have reason to believe that, kind of like what you said, there is a handful of people that really know the full story of everything that's going on. I think it is a very positive sign that Bucky has been back at practice the last 2 weeks. The Bucs have been vocal about both him and Chris Godwin. They're ramping those guys up, so you don't want to rush them back by any means, but getting him focused and getting him back in the building, I think, is a huge step. So I'm hoping that anything that comes out is, again, stuff that is in the rearview mirror at this point. The NFL protecting their players, and I think the Bucs, if it is one of those problems where they choose to keep it in house, then by all means, all we can do is respect it. And I think at the end of the day, if they're looking out for their player and they're making sure that he's right with him at the end of the day, I think that's the most important thing. So obviously, sending thoughts to Bucky with anything that may be going on. Hope to see him back in action soon. The Buccaneers offense certainly does need him, but we're going to talk about Sean Tucker here in a second. I'm chomping at the bit to talk about Sean Tucker because I hope it's not a flash in the pan, as it seems to be. We will get to that. But I do want to talk about the big story here as well. Number 14, Chris Godwin was a full participant at Buccaneers practice on Thursday, and he is in play for Sunday Night Football. Now, Chris Godwin has had an up-and-down season, and I think at this point, you're just rooting for him to get back on the field solely because of how hard he has continuously worked to get back and contribute for this Buccaneers offense. We saw him play a few snaps against Philly. We saw him get a little bit of action against Seattle, but outside of that, man, he just really has not been available. And even in the games that we did see him, he didn't look like the same Chris Godwin. So hoping that, the fibula's healed up, That was the new injury that had popped up this season. The foot injury had nothing to do with the ankle that sidelined him all of last season. So Chris Godwin in play for Sunday Night Football. What are your thoughts here for number 14?
Yeah, I mean, we'll wait and see. Um, he has been practicing for a little bit, and I think it's a positive sign that like he hasn't been ruled out because what the Bucks have been doing, like, they've been trying to sort of get ahead of things a little bit. Like they don't want to get people's hopes up, where they're like, basically like pretty early on in the process, right? Like they don't let it drag on. Like you're not waking up Sunday morning saying, "Oh, well, Chris Godwin play today." Like no, like he's already been declared out. Like so they usually haven't really been messing around with that. So it's a positive sign that like right now he's not, right? He's not declared out. So uh, it does suck for him that like this has nothing to do with, like you said, it has nothing to do with what happened last year. Like it's a completely new thing. Um, it takes, 2 times the work, and it really does suck because he worked so hard to get back from a major injury that ended his season, and then you don't know if he's gonna be back in Tampa, and then he resigns, and he's working back to it, and again he comes back week 4, and then he plays 2 games, and then he gets hurt again, and now he's been out since mid-October. Almost like it's gonna be a month and a half, almost maybe, unless if he suits up to on Sunday night. Hopefully, he can, right? And if he doesn't, feels like we're looking at like okay, like they're maybe being a little cautious, and like he's gonna be out there like very soon, like the next week. I don't think this is something to where like, oh yeah, he's just gonna practice and practice and practice and then never gonna play. Like, no, I think they are gearing up for him to come back. And I mean, look, you talk about this same old Chris Godwin, right? That's not we didn't really at least I hope listeners of the show, because we've echoed this often, that we didn't really expect Chris Godwin to be Chris Godwin in 2025 because again, this is the second time he's come off a major injury. The first time when he came back the next year, he wasn't the same guy, right? It took him a minute to sort of get back to it. Um, and hopefully now, it's kind of a year from hell for him, honestly.
Yeah.
Because like it's just everything that could go wrong did go wrong for him right now. And hopefully he can come back though in this, little stretch run here for the Bucs where you talked about Bucky Irving, the offense needing him. They need a guy like Chris Godwin, right? With Mike Evans being out still. Jalen McMillan, who did not practice, but he was on the practice field without a neck brace. So apparently still targeting a return in December sometime. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, he hasn't even played a single snap of practice yet, like not a rep. So we'll see. But yeah, there's some winnable games coming up, and the Buccaneers are going to need him. They're going to need a guy like Chris Godwin to be out there. Just his presence alone is going to help. I think an offense where we saw against Buffalo, where Emeka Egbuka was kind of getting bracketed at times, and defenses are paying more attention to him because he's the top option right now, right? And other guys have stepped up in, you know, spurts, right? Tej Johnson's had some nice plays. Sterling Shepard's had some nice plays. Kate Otten here and there. But everybody knows that, like, Baker's going to be looking to get the ball to Emeka Egbuka. And when you can take that away, it becomes tough for an offense. So to be able to have another guy like Chris Godwin that could win one-on-one there, just throw in a couple other wrinkles to the offense, I think it'll definitely help. So hopefully, yeah, he's able to come back Sunday night. If not Sunday night, hopefully it's the next week against Arizona, I think.
Yeah, it'll be they're back at home against
Yeah, the
Arizona.
Simeon Rice Ring of Honor game.
Yeah, you got to win that one, man. But I mean, Jacoby
If,
Brissett.
if they lose Arizona, yeah.
Oh boy. I'm glad you brought up the Jalen McMillan return as well. That was the next thing I had on my rundown here. Good to see him back out there, right? We haven't seen him in a lot of the media windows, if you will. I'm sure he's been around the facility, but also the first reported sighting of Jalen McMillan without that bulky neck brace, suffering from a couple of fractures in his neck, that nasty hit he took in a preseason against Pittsburgh. By no means do we expect the Bucs to rush him back, and I think that the luck that they've had with all of these injuries and all of these players missing extended periods of time, the last thing you want to do is rush a player of his caliber back. He's still a young guy. He's still on a rookie contract here in Tampa Bay, and you hope that he can bounce back and continue to be a contributor. Let's talk about contributors in this Buccaneers offense and kind of the elephant in the room here. Sean Tucker, after his 3-touchdown performance last week against Buffalo, although it was a losing effort for the Bucs, Sean Tucker was great. I thought he was maybe robbed of NFC Offensive Player of the Week. I know it goes to a winning team. I know Bryce Young's a quarterback, so it's a little bit sexier of a pick. But, you only get one game like that from Sean Tucker a year. And we got it last year against New Orleans. This year we get it against Buffalo. But that's kind of my question. That's the basis of my question here. We know what Rachaad White is in this offense. Josh Grizzard kind of alluded to it a little bit today. I think maybe he got caught up in saying a little bit too much up on the podium about Bucky and Sean Tucker's workload. Kind of saying that it was too early to game plan them into what's going on. And, Sean Tucker is expected to continue to get more carries. So, if you're hoping Bucky comes back within the next 1 or 2 weeks, again, if we're reading the tea leaves here, that's not a great quote from Josh Grizzard. But let me ask you about Sean Tucker, man. Is this another year where we get, 2 games of what looks like one of the best running back twos in the NFL, this caliber of Sean Tucker, or do you think down the stretch he can be a legitimate weapon for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Because it seems like this season, anytime you give him the touches, he's going to deliver for you.
Yeah, I don't remember if I mentioned this on the New Orleans post game. I might have. But I've actually thought that even before this Buffalo game, I thought the New Orleans game, I thought Sean Tucker looked better than Rachaad White. And the New England game, I thought Sean Tucker looked better than Rachaad White. And then obviously in this game, Sean Tucker was the Bucs' best offensive player. So yeah, I thought he looked better, right, than Rachaad White. So it's earned. I think more playing time is certainly earned, and I don't think there's just some flash in the pan like, oh, he had one good game. Because, like I said, I think this is the string of 3 good games in a row that I think he's had. Just hasn't always gotten the touches. In Buffalo, he got the touches. So I think the Bucs are gonna, especially if they're not expecting Bucky Irving back anytime soon. Okay. You're gonna have to roll like Rachaad White's best position, I guess, is not like bell cow, right? Like it's not. So you're gonna have to roll with what you got, and that is gonna involve having Sean Tucker play a lot more. So I think it's a good thing, right? That Tucker's going to be getting more carries. I think he's looked pretty solid over the last couple of weeks, and like I said, it is well earned. So I do expect him. And now, do I expect it to be like Buffalo, where like he's getting most of the carries? No, I do think obviously the Bucs will ride the hot hand if he's running the ball well consistently like that again, sure, but. I don't think it's going to be as drastic as it was. I still think they view Rachaad White as like their top running back right now. But I still think we're going to see Sean Tucker a lot more than we did earlier in the season, and good for him because like I said, I think he's earned this opportunity.
And I'm curious to see just how productive he can be against this Rams defense. The Bucs right now are ranked 6th in the NFL in EPA per rush, which is pretty damn good when you consider some of the inconsistencies they've had running the football. And maybe that 200-plus yard performance last week on the ground is a bit of an outlier on the season. But I think that one of the things we saw last week, especially from Josh Grizzard and his offensive usage, Tristan Wirfs was your pulling tackle a lot of the times. And he was a full head of steam freight train going one-on-one with defensive backs, like stuff like that. The creativity in the run game, the pre-snap motion, I think you're getting a better feel of how to open things up and run Sean Tucker, especially in some of these gap block schemes. It seems like things are opening up a little bit. And I hope that, Luke Gedeke getting back there at right tackle, getting his feet wet. Ben Bredesen had popped up at practice this week. I don't expect him to play. I think he's still a week or 2 out, but man, he is sorely missed when you look at just the dogs that they are lacking at the offensive guard position.
It was very funny with Bredesen really quick. Luke Gedeke comes back against the Patriots and stuff, and everybody's like, oh, they finally have because obviously they're not going to have their starting 5 with Cody Mauch being out, but they're like, oh, they finally have their offensive line, what it's going to be, right? Like finally or whatever. One drive and Ben Bredesen injures his hamstring. He's out for the game. That's all it lasted. It lasted 6 plays, and then that was it.
And I think, honestly, when you highlight that game, and you look at the offensive performance as a whole, you remember how hot they started on that first drive and then just crap the bed down the stretch. Really couldn't find much of a rhythm. And I don't know if it's entirely a coincidence that all started to spiral when Ben Bredesen left the game.
Might have been. I mean, I think it played a factor. I don't know if it was the whole deal, right? Um, because I think there was a few other like execution things in that game more
Yeah.
so. But yeah, I mean, it just that's the way it's been this year for the Bucks, especially on the offensive side of the ball, right? Like it's you finally get like okay, you know, you've waited forever to have Wirfs, and Wirfs came back, and then Gedeke was hurt, and Gedeke's been hurt for a while, and in that meantime, Cody Mount got hurt, but now you finally have like your guys, like your five guys who are gonna be there for this run, and they're only together for like a couple of plays, and then it's like, okay, yeah, he's out.
Yeah.
So then you're gonna have to wait a little bit more for that. Yeah, so hopefully it is positive that Bredesen was able to participate in practice, but like you said, I am also not expecting him to play. That'd be a pretty quick turnaround. So, but it does have good news for his stats for next week. I think
Yeah.
that he's able to practice this week.
Previewing a little bit more of this Buccaneers offense before they hit the road for Sunday Night Football. Let's talk about the quarterback, Baker Mayfield. I gotta get your opinions on everything over the last couple of weeks. We've really missed your opinion here, and I just want to know where your head's at with Baker Mayfield, because I'm sure, as you've seen and many others have seen, there is a lot of discourse right now all over this Buccaneers team. I mean, there's a lot of question marks with where they are at 6-4, right? And we'll get to some of the ones on the defensive side of the ball here shortly. But we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the quarterback, because when you look at some of the execution errors on the offensive side of the ball, Evan, we can talk about the injuries. We can talk about guys not getting open, not having the world beaters in the red area, if you will, not having your starting offensive guards. That's going to present some problems. Graham Barton has struggled a little bit. So the injuries are a very real thing for this Bucs offense. The shuffling around to the offensive line is a very real thing for this Buccaneers offense. Not having Bucky Irving is a very big thing. But again, we look at execution errors over the last 3 or 4 games, and the Baker Mayfield that we have seen over the last month, my friend, it's not that guy that we saw early on in the season. And I'm curious if you've seen this too. I feel like he's just, whether he can't settle in or just isn't really seeing the field the way that he was, it seems like he is missing some targets that he simply shouldn't. And we know that he has kind of a Superman mentality every now and again, looking for a big play downfield. But I just, to put it plainly, I think there's too many things that he's missed that he hasn't missed in the past. And that's kind of, raising a red flag. Ebbs and flows of the NFL season, but the Baker we get recently doesn't look the same.
I'm sort of somewhere in the middle on this. I think last week he looked a little bit more like himself,
Yeah.
and because he's using his legs, right? Like I think that's one of the biggest things. Because before, like literally didn't even attempt, right? Like I think it was the New Orleans game did not attempt to run, the New England game did not attempt to run. Like just did not even attempt to run the ball. And that's an asset, right? Like, and I understand defenses, his Baker, look, he was having a lot of success with it early in the season, right? I get it. And when you have success, well, the defenses are going to be keying in on that, and they're going to be looking to stop that and try to slow that down. So I get that. Defenses adjust and everything like that. But it just seemed like there was some opportunities in that New Orleans game and in that New England game that he could have ran, not picked up 30 yards, not even picked up 15 yards. I don't know, 3-4 yards, just pick up something, right? Rather than an incomplete pass or a near interception or a sack or whatever it may be. Just pick up something. And it seemed like he was so hesitant. Now, in Buffalo, they called a couple runs for him, right? And it worked out pretty well. And I thought he moved around the pocket better. So I think he's getting there, right? I think he's getting back to what I think makes him best. And that's almost like a backyard football, right? Type thing. I think that's when he's at his best, when he's playing that backyard football. And The biggest issue I've had has been the accuracy, because to me, it's not even so much of like, oh, he's missing open guys or whatever. It's sometimes he finds the open guys and he's just simply not accurate enough,
Right.
right? Like the one to Kate Otten on third down, I still thought Kate Otten should have had the ball last week against Buffalo, but it is a little bit behind him. If he leads them a little bit more, it's a much easier catch. Otten may actually be able to run a little bit after that catch, and that keeps the chains moving. There was a couple, to Emeka that were just nowhere close, both in the New England game and in the Buffalo game. The interception he threw, obviously we don't know the play that's called. We don't know who's supposed to be exactly where and everything like that, but it seems like he was trying to throw the ball at Sterling Shepard, and I don't know if he thought Shepard was going to be continuing to run and Shepard kind of stopped or what. I almost hope that's the case, because if it's not, like, it's one of the most inaccurate passes I've ever seen him throw.
Yeah.
But even if Shepard's there, it's still going to be too high. So I that's my biggest concern right now, is like the accuracy for me is just not there, and he needs to be better. And you're not going to beat Buffalo and Buffalo playing like that, right? And guess what? I know we haven't really gotten into the Rams yet, and we will, like, next pretty much. Um, but you're not going to beat the Rams playing like that either. Like, it's not going to happen. So you have to be much better. And I think the Rams are probably the best team in the NFL right now. I know New England has won, what, 8 straight or whatever. I get it. But I think when you look at the games, like, I think the Rams, who's playing the best football right now, I think it's probably the Los Angeles Rams. So you got to be better. And hopefully he is. And if he is, they'll have a shot, right? But if he's not, you're not gonna have a chance to win on Sunday night. And it all starts with him, because look, I get it that you don't have Mike Evans and you don't have Chris Godwin and you don't have Bucky Irving and your offensive line sort of shuffled around and stuff, but like, people were praising you and calling you an MVP earlier in the season when you were doing it without those guys. So why can we excuse that now? Oh, he doesn't have these guys. Well, he put up 30 plus points in Seattle without those guys. Chris Godwin was sort of limited that game. Mike Evans didn't play. Bucky Irving didn't play. He beat the 49ers without Emeka Ibuka in the second half of that game. I mean, to me, it's just like, you're using it. People are using that from earlier in the season as praise, right? Of, oh my God, he's doing that without all these weapons, and now they're sort of using it as excuses of, well, he doesn't have the weapons. Well, which one is it, right? Because at one point he was doing it without the weapons, right? It wasn't that big of an issue. And I understand, again, that defenses are gonna key in on stuff and they're gonna try and stop stuff, but yeah, he's got to be. I don't think he's been awful. Like, there's some people that think he's been like just dreadful. I don't think that, but I do think he needs to be better.
No, I think you brought up his playmaking ability with his legs. That's a huge win, honestly, for this offense as a whole, because that carried the Buccaneers through so much of the first quarter of the season, right? Won them the game against Houston on prime time, made a critical play against San Francisco. Like, Baker is no stranger to making some of the greatest plays this season happen, and he's doing that with his legs. So to have that back in his tool set, to know that he feels comfortable enough to do it, and to also know that Josh Grizzard is not incentivizing it, but crafting some options for him, right? We saw multiple RPOs for Baker, and I think that's the first time all season we've seen him do that.
I never really saw it. I didn't even see it much last season, really,
Right.
to me. Like, that's something sort of new. Like, RPOs, read options, like, that's something new, and it worked. I mean, will it work every time? No, but like, it did work.
I think the other context that's still important here, and I know people are going to go back and forth, they're going to say, well, the Bucs can't beat the good teams. I think you can look at the NFC right now and say that it's a lot of teams that are beating other good teams. Like, I also think that the NFL, they talk about parity, and I think some people would argue there's a lot of mediocrity this year, which leads to teams being as close as they are. But let's look at who the Bucs have lost to, Evan. They lost to Philly. They lost to Detroit. They lost to New England. And they lost to Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. And I know the Bills looked like a very beatable Bills team. But like, we all watched it with our eyes, man. When you've got Josh Allen and he's making plays like that, I think I think the discourse is going to be interesting. Like those are arguably between the four of those teams, you could say all four of them probably top 10 teams in the NFL right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, the Eagles are 8-2. The Lions are 6-4. But I mean, when you watch them, they feel like a legit team, right? Like the Lions just lost to the Eagles,
Yeah.
right? Like they just they lost a good game to a good team. The Patriots are 9-2, and the Bills are 7-3. So, like, yeah, and I get it, right? Like, well, in the playoffs, you're going to be playing good teams. I get it, but like they've also beaten Seattle, and Seattle's 7-3. And like before that Rams game was like they're like, oh my God, Seattle's like one of the best teams, and there's still people that think Seattle's one of the best teams. The San Francisco 49ers are 7-4. The Bucs beat them, so it's not like they've just not beaten anybody. I think part of the reason why people maybe feel this way, I think is sure, like when you go up against a Philly or a Detroit, especially Detroit Monday Night Football, um, New England, like that was like the big CBS game, Buffalo. I think when you do that, and then lose, combined with barely beating the Texans, barely beating the Falcons, barely beating the Jets, even though that game was a lot less close than it actually was. It took a lot of fluky things for the Jets to get back in that game. But I think that, like, them losing to those teams combined with barely beating the other teams where people view them as like inferior, I think that's what started this. Well, they only beat bad teams and they barely beat them, so they're actually not good. Well, that's not really necessarily the case. Like, the Texans are actually, I think they're above 500 now, and right
They
now they're currently beating the Bills on Thursday Night Football.
statistically, I don't know if many people know this right now, but statistically across the board right now, Houston
They
is
are
the
500.
best. They're the
5-5.
best. They're the best defense in football right
Yeah.
now. I'm not trying to be dramatic, and again, we're not trying to bang the drum here and say that the Bucs are beating world beaters, but like you got to give credit where credit is due. Houston has got a damn good defense, one of the best in the league so far this season. We knew that going into that matchup early on in the year as well, and a lot of people would argue they look like a better team right now without CJ Stroud, but that's beside the point. You want to hear something else that might bum you out?
I guess.
So
That's a heck of a segue.
Yeah, it's a good transition. We're going to get into our Sunday Night Football matchup here. But your top 3 front runners for MVP.
Oh, I know what this is.
Number 3 at plus 550 on DraftKings is Josh Allen, who just so happened to score 6 touchdowns against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I think there's something in common with all of these people.
Number 2 at plus 185 out of the New England Patriots is Drake May. Both of those guys just beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And your MVP frontrunner, which I think is a perfect segue into this Buccaneers defense versus the Rams offense, at plus 135, Matthew Stafford, who, to be completely honest, you got to give credit where credit is due.
He's so good,
dude. And the
that
problem,
guy's awesome.
And the problem is that at the beginning of the season, I was convinced he wouldn't make it to week 6. Like, you remember the hashtag Matt Stafford died, because they thought the Rams were like weekend at Bernie's with him up there at the press conference. He had all the back issues, and he's one of the older starting NFL quarterbacks right now. Doesn't matter, dude. Leads the NFL in touchdowns. I think he is like 5+ touchdowns ahead of the next guy. I think Jared Goff might be second place with 20, and Matt Stafford sitting comfortably with 25, playing one of the best seasons of his career. And, he's got Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Puka Nacua is a generational talent. Devontae Adams is their red zone target. He has got double-digit touchdowns this season, and we're barely halfway through the regular season. Let's take a look at this Buccaneers defense and your thoughts on how they are going to possibly try and handle Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, and a Rams offense that, again, has just plagued them with issues every time they play. Now, the Buccaneers were victorious the last time these teams met in 2022, but that feels like a lifetime ago.
And that's not. Both those teams were, like the Rams were in like that transitional period Um, that was weird. That whole thing was weird. Um, that was when that was at the point where you were like, oh, how much longer is McVay going to coach the Rams? And Aaron Donald, I think he was still on the team by that point. I think he had retired after that season or the 2023 season. I forget exactly, but yeah, Matt Stafford is one heck of a quarterback. And just a little fun fact. Well, maybe. Based on who they're playing this week. Matt Stafford has 20 touchdowns and no interceptions against the Blitz this season.
Where have I heard that before?
And yeah, and Todd Bowles, the pressure that the Bucs have been. To be fair, I didn't think they were awful against New England. I didn't think the front four was terrible against New England. And also in the first half against Buffalo, I didn't think they were terrible. And then it just seemed like in the second half, they just got completely dominated. Couldn't get any sort of push. Josh Allen had all day. If you get that again against Matthew Stafford and then Todd Bowles has to blitz and blitz and blitz to try and get some pressure, it's going to be a long night. It just, he is, and he's been so good against the blitz. I remember right before that, that divisional game, right? The game that broke everybody's brains. I remember leading up to that point, we talked about how good he was against the blitz, right? So naturally you do it with 50 seconds left. But I remember that, right? So he's always been good against the blitz, right? That hasn't changed. And now they have Devontae Adams, who's been great for them. They get rid of Cooper Kupp, bring in Devontae Adams. Puka Nacua is still there. They got all these weapons and stuff. Sean McVay's, at his best right now. And it's gonna be a really big challenge, right? It really is. Because Stafford is just a darn good football player, and sometimes you gotta tip your cap to the opponent and say that guy is just really freaking good at football. And Matt Stafford's one of those guys, and I have a feeling there's gonna be a time or two on Sunday night where you just look at it and say just a really good play. There's not really a whole lot you can do because he's been doing it pretty much all season long. And right now, I think, assuming everything stays the same right now, I think he probably is the MVP. So there's a few guys that are going to make a case, but I think he is rightfully the front runner.
I think when we talk about this Buccaneers defense again and how they're going to try and approach a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, one of the things that I want to try to remember, and maybe I'm going out on a limb here, but just hear me out. Matthew Stafford is playing MVP level football right now, but I think it is fair to say that a 37, 38-year-old Matt Stafford is not Josh Allen.
Yeah,
now,
mobility-wise, yes.
Right. So
he's not even really Drake May.
Right.
Drake May's more mobile.
I think the unicorn plays, the explosives that we saw from Josh Allen, I don't feel like we have to worry about it to that same degree as Matt Stafford. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to not get his. And I'm not saying that he's not going to carve this defense up, but I think when we start to talk about pressure and we transition a little bit to this pass rush, I do think we're going to see hopefully a couple of more sacks against LA. I mean, the lack of pressure against Buffalo was laughable, right? And I don't know if it was just getting too comfortable with three-man fronts. The Bucs
I thought their blitzes affected Allen early, and then they just went away from him.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think the problem, though, lies within the personnel that they have. This Buccaneers football team, it's a fact at this stage of the game. They cannot rush four down linemen without Hassan Reddick on the field. Yaya Diaby, as good as he has been this season, I feel like when he's got Chris Braswell on the other side of him, it just doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't.
What does that say about Chris? I have some thoughts on Chris Braswell.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, his status kind of up in the air this week. I think he's considered day-to-day, expected to play. But, I mean, if he didn't play, with all due respect, would you notice he wasn't out there?
There was one time I heard Chris Braswell's name on Sunday, and it was when he made a special teams tackle. That was it. You can't convince me. And I think I said this I spoke to James for the first time in a long time, which was great. But it was
glad you guys made up.
Yeah. He was the one who caused the hamstring injury. I know.
He's a dirty player.
Yeah, I know. That's just him and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. That's just those two guys, man. That's just who they are. Head case. But um, I was talking to him or whatever, and I just said to him, I was like, look. There's no way you can't convince me that Noah Spence right now is not better than this guy. Like you can't you can't convince me that he's not better than Chris Braswell right now. Like, and I actually saw somebody, and it reminded me to say that today because I saw somebody on Twitter today mention about Braswell. I'm like, yeah, like he's a lot like Noah Spence. Noah Spence actually was good for some brief stretches of his
He
career.
was,
Chris
man.
Braswell showed you nothing in 2 years, like absolutely nothing. He barely played last season, and the Bucs format. It wasn't like, oh, he barely played, but man, that Yaya Diaby had 12 sacks and Anthony Nelson was great. No, that wasn't the case. Like they were starved for pass rushers, and they still didn't play him. And now this year, it's sort of the same thing. He's barely playing and Hassan Reddick isn't even out there. I, yeah, Jason Light, great general manager. That's one that he's going to want to have back. I'm not even convinced he's on the roster next year.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I think for a second round pick, it is more than safe to say that he has not lived up to his end of the bargain. And just as of right now, you can't describe him as anything other than a miss by Jason Light. And I hate to say that because he's still on the team. He's still on my television every single Sunday, but he's just not doing anything. But back to my main point about pressure. Heading into that game against Buffalo, the Bucs were a top 5 pressure rate team in the NFL. They were top 10 in sacks. They're doing that without Hassan Reddick on the field. So our point here, Evan, is that the Bucs can effectively find ways to get pressure without 4 down linemen, but it's going to kind of be, boom or bust. I think that's the brand of a Todd Bowles defense. You're going to make a lot of plays happen. You're going to disrupt quarterbacks with pressure. You're going to force Josh Allen to look like 2018 Josh Allen when he throws a stupid-ass interception because of all the pressure in his face. If you can consistently do that, you're going to force mistakes. But if you have to consistently do that to generate pressure, every now and again, you're going to give up a big play.
Especially against the really good quarterbacks.
Exactly. So, that's where it's kind of, give or take with Matt Stafford. How much do you really want to poke the bear before he's throwing over the top of you? But I do think, all things considered, as great of a quarterback as he is, I call it a prediction. I say the Bucs get 2 sacks this week against the Rams. Is it a winning effort?
Do.
I know. Is it a
2 sacks?
Yeah.
Wow.
Hold on. Is it a winning effort?
Good for
I don't
them.
know. Yeah. 2 sacks and a takeaway. All right, I'll throw it on the table. I'll risk a little bit more. I won't be conservative here. Let's say 2 sacks and a takeaway, because one of the things that I can say has been good about the Buccaneers defense so far this season is that they finally figured out how to take the ball away, Evan.
They certainly have.
And that was the number one thing that Todd Bowles preached all offseason, is taking the ball away. Now we'll get to Todd Bowles here in a second.
He's gonna have to preach something else.
We'll get to Todd Bowles here in a second. But your final thoughts here on this Buccaneers defense matching up with Matt Stafford and the rest of the firepower that LA has.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even need to get sacks with 4 guys, right? Just affect the quarterback, right? Make him uncomfortable. Make him throw that ball a half second, a quarter of a second before he wants to, right? That little bit can affect that so much. That's a difference between on 3rd and 12, a 15-yard completion that's a backbreaker and keeps the drive going, or an incomplete pass where you get the ball back with great field position, right? Like, that's the difference sometimes. They haven't been able to do that this season consistently. There's been some times, and I brought up, I tweeted out a thing that, like, in pass rush win rate, like, they heading into the Buffalo game, they were really good. Like, they were, like, really good. I think they were 5th or 6th in the NFL in pass rush win rate. And the sack numbers were good. But when you watch it, it doesn't feel that way, right? Like, the eye test doesn't match up with the numbers. And especially last week, right? Like, I didn't check the numbers after the Buffalo game, but I imagine Probably going down a little bit because again, they didn't do enough, right? And I think one of the reasons why the Bucs sort of got away from blitzing Josh Allen in the second half was because I think those big plays that were allowed by the defense sort of scared them off. Because again, when you blitz, that you're obviously more prone to allow big splash plays. And I think the amount of splash plays that Buffalo had in the first half sort of scared them off. And I just wonder, yeah, again, you kind of said how often is Todd Bowles going to sit there with the stick and just sort of taunt, taunt the big bear until he gets up and you're looking up and you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
right? Like, because eventually you do it one too many times, it's going to burn you, right?
Yeah.
Like it just is. And when you have Matt Stafford and you have Puka Nakua and Devontae Adams and Sean McVay as the play caller, they're gonna find a way to break through. So, yeah, you really have to pick your spots. And hopefully you can get a little luck involved as well and come away with a turnover, and maybe that's the difference there.
Yeah, consistent pressure is the name of the game for the Buccaneers this week. I know I said, a field day of 2 sacks and maybe a takeaway, but the pressures matter. And a lot of people are going to say that, oh, pressures don't matter unless you're getting sacks. Pressures 100% matter, in my opinion. Pressures are what create mistakes, right? That Josh Allen
Yes.
interception was created in havoc. It was created in pressure by
Hmm.
a Todd Bowles defense that was just all over him. So with that being said, consistent pressure going to be one of the keys of the game. To put a bow on the defense, I just want to say that I still think the middle of the field is going to be one of our weak points. We can kind of
Yeah.
gloss over that quickly. Servassier Dennis and Levante David. While Servassier Dennis has played better, dare I say it, still
Yeah.
just lacks, I think, the
Yeah.
juice.
Well, it really tells you how bad he's played that, like, you're like, oh, he's played better, and he still hasn't been that
Right.
good.
Yeah, I mean, in Levante David playing very high IQ football right now, but respectfully lacking a little bit of that juice that we have seen in seasons past. So the middle of the field is always going to be an issue. But let me ask you about Zion McCollum this season as a whole. Kind of disappointing, no? I think he's been far too quiet, and I think he's been on the receiving end of too many big plays, especially when you consider that Jacob Parrish, I know Benjamin Morrison has kind of had a down last few weeks, but like Tyke Smith, you've got
Oh, that
defensive
guy.
back contributors popping up all over the place, and the guy that you just paid almost $20 million a year is kind of making mistakes that he hasn't made in seasons past. And that's, I think as of right now, he's doesn't look like the same guy, and that's not a great thing.
I think there's two things. One, I don't think he was awful against Buffalo. And then obviously against New England, he allowed the one big play, and that kind of, But I also think it's something with people getting big contracts. And it's kind of when I think there's just so much more of a magnifying glass on you when you've signed this big deal that people just they look at the mistakes and they critique them just a little bit more because they're like, oh, that's a mistake, and we're not, they're paying you $20 million a year. It's not, oh, it's a mistake, but McCollum, yeah, he's a young player, this like if he did that 2 years ago, it would have been, yeah, he's been playing okay. He's a young player though, his mistakes are gonna happen. Now though, that he signed an extension, it's yep, he got the money, and like so I think there is a spotlight put on you, right? When you sign an extension, especially when you're not like a bona fide star, right? Like Zion McCollum is not a star level player. So like when you're just like a good, solid player, I think there's more of a spotlight on you. So I don't think McCollum's been terrible. Has he been worth $16 million a year? Probably not. But I also think that like the future, like I'm fine with him being my corner next year. Um, Benjamin Morrison, I'm still pretty bullish on. I think Benjamin Morrison is going to end up being a good football player. We got to remember, he didn't really play as much football last year, so really getting a taste of it. And there's been ups and downs, right? I thought there was some bad, obviously some bad. Um, the first New England, and I didn't get a chance to talk about this, and um, the first New England touchdown, I actually didn't think was terrible coverage by Benjamin Morrison. I thought it was a pretty good throw by Drake May, and dude just outran him, right? So, um, and then we talked about Jacob Parrish, like he's been great. Picked up his first career interception on Sunday, and Tyke Smith's actually been you could actually say he's been the best player on the defense.
Yeah, he has.
The entire season. Like you could say that. Like easily, I think the best player in the secondary, but you could say he's been their best player on defense. He is just everywhere right now, and hey, kudos to them. I did not love the decision to move him to basically strong safety full time in the offseason when they did. I thought he was good as the nickel. Why sort of switch that? Why ruin a good thing like that? Even if he is decent at safety, like, and it helps with Jacob Parrish being as good as he's been for the nickel. That helps. But I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I love that, right? It's paid off because he has been everywhere, and the interception against Drake May was an unbelievable play and should have saved the game for him, right? And it almost did, and offense just couldn't come up with something. But yeah, Tyke Smith's been great, and the Bucs secondary, they're not bad. But when you give up, when you have 3, 4, 5 good plays in a row, it's not going to matter if the 6th play is a 75-yard touchdown. Nobody is going to care about the other 4 plays. They're not. So everybody's going to look at that one, and that's what's happening with the Bucs right now. It's New England beat them with 4 plays.
Yep.
Like
yes.
New England beat them with 4 plays. Buffalo probably beat them with a little bit more. I think they got a little bit more beat in Buffalo, especially in the second half there. But yeah, it has to stop, right? Like it simply has to stop. It's becoming a trend, and you're not going to beat anybody giving up that many splash plays.
Yeah, and that's been a preaching point for Todd Bowles is the explosives. It seems like even from players within the organization who kind of talk to the media about it, seems like there is nothing that pisses Bowles off more than explosive plays given up on defense. And I mean, that's the brand, right? It's Todd Bowles. You're a defensive head coach. It's kind of your calling card. So I can understand where if your guys are making you look bad, then you look bad. And there's been plenty of finger pointing at Todd Bowles. Before we get to that, we'll close with Todd Bowles. But just a little side note here. One of the other keys to the game for Tampa Bay this week, special teams. Just show up. What the hell, dude? They have been terrible. And we can talk all day about the defense giving up 44 points to Buffalo. Some of that being, Josh Allen unicorn plays, great play calls, and great play designs and player involvement from that offense. You have to give credit where credit is due. But I think a huge part of the discussion that is being left out about the defensive performance from last Sunday against Buffalo is that, man, I don't even think the best NFL defense can stop Josh Allen every single drive from the 45-yard line.
It's a little tough, yeah.
It's tough, right? I mean, listen, the Bills had their fair share of had to earn it drives. They had a couple of 75 plus.
Yeah, I think their last two touchdown drives, I think, were both like 80-yard drives.
Right, and that last touchdown drive we will get to in a second here when we talk about Todd Bowles. I don't want to get ahead of myself here. But special teams got to be terrible.
Got to be
no. Special teams, it's got to be better so they are not terrible. Thomas McGahee, I think is how you say his name if I'm correct here.
Thomas McUnemployed.
Yeah, he's gonna be hitting up Indeed.com at the end of the season if Todd Bowles is taking his role as head coach here seriously, and I think that is going to be a point of discussion. Once we finish the season and we all get back on the carousel we love so much of, is Todd Bowles going to be back?
Boy.
Yeah,
boy. They lose 2 games and here we go.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just echoing.
I saw somebody the other day say they need to bring Bruce back, so.
Yeah.
That's good.
Right.
Never going to have. The Todd Bowles could go, I don't know, like 15-2, and after those 2 losses they'd be like, bring Bruce back.
Fire Bowles.
Yeah, Bruce needs to come back.
This OC is a joke.
Yep.
And Todd's still my guy, but we do have to talk about this. So yeah, special teams, they got to learn how to cover it.
Special teams have been special.
They certainly have. But let's talk about Todd Bowles. And I want to highlight Todd Bowles. We've said, I think, honestly, on this podcast, you and I have said more good things about Todd Bowles this season than any other season he's had as Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach. So let's establish the groundwork there. But when you look at that game in Buffalo, a lot of people are going to point to 4th and 2, where for the first time this season, I would say
he's been much better at it.
He really has.
To be fair.
And I'd say that's really the first, he bowled it up. I think that's the first time he's done that all year. And that is a sign of improvement. But again, we have now seen at least one time this season, Todd Bowles coaching scared bit him in the ass. And he had faith in his defense to get a stop. I don't know why, but he did. Your thoughts on Todd Bowles here, sitting at 6-4 and staring down the barrel of, again, Sean McVay, a guy who has, with all due respect, routinely outcoached him in the past.
That's okay to have faith in your defense if the score is like 13-10.
Right.
And your defense is playing great. Like, okay, hand the ball back to him. You're gonna get the ball back, right? Like, you're gonna get the ball back with a chance to win the game. There is no way. Nobody. I think Todd Bowles is the only person. I don't even know if the defensive players thought it. I think Todd Bowles was the only person in that stadium or watching the game that actually thought, well, maybe they'll get a stop. And he says, oh, there's too much time in the game. Was there too much time in the game when the Bills are up 2 scores then? Like, you punted away any chance you had of winning. 3rd and 2, you throw the ball. You're running down their throat the entire day. Run the ball there. If for some reason you don't get the 2 yards, then just go for it on 4th down. You have 2 plays to get 2 yards. And instead you throw the ball, you throw an incompletion, and then you punt and you don't get the ball back until the game is essentially over, right? Because the Bills are up 2 scores. It's just, that was like the one, and I don't remember the exact scenario, but it was like the overtime thing, or it was either late in the game or in overtime in Cleveland in 2022 when they had Brady and the Bucs lost to Jacoby Brissett and the Browns in overtime, where it was like a 4th and 2 or a 4th and 3 at midfield, and they punted. Like, that was like, it's that bad of a decision. Like, it really is. And like, it felt it in the moment. Like, it wasn't even like, oh man, yeah, maybe. Like, no, dude. Like, there's no reason on that day with how Josh Allen was playing and how bad your defense was playing. There's no reason to have any faith in your defense right there. Like, there is no faith. The only way I'd want to give that to my defense for them to have to make a play is if that's right after my offense went down, score a touchdown, and take the lead. That's the only reason I want my defense out there. And he elected to do it, and it cost him. It cost him, I don't know if it cost him a win, because obviously there's no guarantee that the Bucs would have scored, but like, would have liked to see him try, would have liked to see more of an effort there. So yeah, you are right. I think that's one of the first ones this season, and there might be some more if we really looked at it this season, but that's one of the first ones this season where you're like, man, that is a pretty bad and pretty scared decision by Bowles. And like, he used to have those, like he used to have a bunch, especially in 2022. He used to have a bunch, and it was frustrating, but like last year he was better than this year. He's been really good with it. But yeah, Buffalo, that's one. I think there's no way, I'm sure he's admitting that to himself. He's probably kicking himself, right? I'm sure, where like he's like, probably a bad decision, and it definitely was. So hopefully you learned your lesson there.
Thank you to everybody in the live chat for hanging out with us. We're gonna field this one before we wrap up. Very Thick Hog says,
yeah, there we go.
Yeah, says the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It feels like deja vu. I feel like we have said the same things about the pass rush and the defensive backs since the Super Bowl. At what point do we just say that this Todd Bowles scheme is holding us back? And Very Thick Hog, let me respond with this. I honestly think...
Listen here, Thick Hog.
Listen here, Mr. Hog. I think that this kind of calls back to what we had said earlier about Todd Bowles and his brand of defense, where as of right now, we are this far into the season with the pieces that we have, and we know that kind of the mentality, if you will, is if you're gonna live by the sword, you die by the sword. And we have especially seen that these last 2 weeks with the explosives. And I think many people can agree that those 2 games with the explosive plays, New England being a little bit more fluky in that sense, those are the outliers for the season. Like the Bucs have not routinely done that this year. Maybe there's one or two that has snuck by so far, but like they've been pretty good at keeping things in front of them and keeping offenses on the field for a very long time. So with that being said, when the Bucs were 5-1, I mean, hell, when the Bucs were 6-2 coming out of the bye week, nobody had a problem with it then, right? Like it kind of seems to me like whenever we lose, and yes, I know the defensive performance,
winning cures all.
Winning cures all. You are very right, but I think while some of that is true, Mr. Hogg, a lot of it is just it's what's the word I'm looking for? Brand identity. Like it kind of is what it is. I don't think that I can say we are being held back by this Bulls defense until they look like they did last week every week. I think that the first 8 weeks of the season, they looked like an improved unit. Dare I say, up until the first quarter of that Buffalo game, they looked good enough for my dumb ass to jump on Twitter and say, this is the best the Bucs defense has looked in a long time. And we saw how they repaid me, but I was confident in that statement, Evan. And I think that there is plenty of evidence to show, at least in the first, 7 to 8 games, where this Bucs team was, where their defense was, and how I think that, yes, Gervasier Dennis has struggled. Some guys aren't able to attack the way that they used to, and you're missing some pieces on pass rush. But, like, damn it, dude, they've been making it happen.
So, I don't know. I didn't really hear many people complaining about Bulls' scheme holding the pass rush back when Shaq Barrett was getting 19 and a half sacks. I don't know. To me, when you're talking about the pass rush, and trust me, I am sick and tired of year in and year out talking about them not getting a consistent pass rush. Because it's been a problem. And to me, I feel, and it's my biggest complaint with Jason Light. It really drives me. If I had 30 seconds with Jason Light, I'd ask him one question and it'd be about the pass rush. Right? Like I don't get it. It doesn't even seem like they actually try and correct it. It seems like they're just hoping to start, keep mining and hopefully you hit the pot of gold. Like they're hoping to get lucky. Like, oh, we draft Diaby in the third round. He's a stud. Oh my God, Chris Braswell in the second round. You sign Hassan Reddick to a 1-year deal. Like it seems like they're trying to just, well, if we hit on this, like I swear it's almost like the Shaq Barrett thing is like the best thing to happen to this team, but like the worst thing also, because it gave them like a belief that they can just continue to do this.
Yeah.
Just find these guys out of nowhere and oh my God, they're gonna be great. Like, no, Shaq Barrett's the outlier. Like Shaq Barrett's do not happen typically. Like that is so, and look, Shaq Barrett never got close to 19 and a half sacks again, and like we knew he wouldn't. But like even like getting 12 sacks out of a guy that you signed, 3 years prior to a 1-year, $4 million deal. That just doesn't happen all the time, right? That's a once in every couple of years thing, and they're hoping to do it every single year. So I say all that to say this. To me, it's more of a, with the pass rush in particular, I just don't think they have the dudes. Like we've talked about Chris Braswell being invisible. I think Yaya Diaby is probably more of a 2. On a really good team, he's a 3. Like on that 2020 Bucs team, I understand we're comparing a team that won the Super Bowl to a team to this team now. I understand it's not exactly fair. But even like 2021, he's their third pass rusher. Because it's Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul, they're both ahead of him. So on a really good team, he's a 3. Reddick at this point in his career is probably best served as a 2. They don't have a 1. Anthony Nelson is more served as a 3/4. David Walker, they draft him. I'm a big fan of David Walker. If he didn't get hurt this year, he's not fixing this pass rush. Like, he's a 5th-round pick. Like, he is not fixing this pass rush all by himself. So, at that number 1, I don't know. I don't know. And look, maybe Bowles won't be around to see it when they finally do get that number one, guy, because we don't know when it's gonna happen, right? Like, I don't know. They've had plenty of chances to pick one in the first round. They haven't done it. Like, yeah, Mecca Ibuka is great and stuff, but like Dominic Araku's starting to come on for the Cowboys. Like, he's starting to play well. Like like obviously, yeah, Ibuka's been better for the Bucs than Araku's been for the Cowboys. But like, what's long term, what's the bigger need, right? Like, and you could say, well, Ibuka, but you don't have a crystal ball. You can't tell that Mike Evans is gonna get hurt and Chris Godwin's gonna come back and then get hurt again. Jalen Bowen's gonna get hurt. Like, you don't have that crystal ball. So until they get that number one pass rusher, whether it's a veteran or they finally draft one in the first round and it hits, I have a tough time completely criticizing Bowles for the lack of four-man pass rush because ultimately I just think they simply don't have enough talent there.
Well, then let's criticize Jason Light. No, I'm kidding. We won't do that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a fair criticism of him.
So let me ask you this question. We actually got a really good call. I think it was David who called in on one of our post-game shows, and he kind of went on a rant about Jason Light, and he said,
when is he not?
Yeah,
to be honest with you,
that's a fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point. But it was the same thing that a lot of people are saying, and I'm glad that you kind of briefly talked about it. I don't think you used the word trade deadline, but let's talk about trade deadline. Looking at Jason Light and how he's built this team, looking at their lack of a true number one edge rusher, I know that their pass rush has been dynamic, and that's one of the points that we've made repeatedly throughout the show is like pressure rate, they were doing well this year. Top 10 team in sacks. They are getting after the quarterback, and they're doing it with more than just a four-man pass rush, right? That's one of the key identities of a Todd Bowles defense. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. If you send Jacob Parrish after the quarterback, you're probably going to have an open spot somewhere in coverage. Let me ask you this, though. Are you, right now, as a fan, as someone who watches this team every week, are you actively holding it against Jason Light that he didn't take advantage of the trade deadline? Like, no, there wasn't really anybody available that wasn't going to cost you multiple draft picks who's going to come in and save this Buccaneers pass rush. But, I mean, is this the year where it's worth doing that? With the injuries, in hindsight, you can say, no, it's not. But, like, how much better is his pass rush if Hassan Reddick is available the last 4 weeks? You know what I mean? Like, is it one of those things that you're consistently thinking about, the lack of movement at the trade deadline? Like, is that what separates him from other NFL GMs? Or do you think he is still top 3 NFL GM? He's a great drafter. We're just, kind of feeling the effects of a down injury year.
I think there's truth in both of those. Because I do think he's really good. Now, do I think he's top 3? Probably not. I could probably, like, Howie Roseman's obviously really good. Brett Veach of the Chiefs has been really good, even though the Chiefs, themselves are having a down year. But, I mean, look, what they've built speaks for itself. There's a couple other guys that I think are really, really good. I mean, I think Jason Light, though, is like a top 8-ish GM in the league, I would say, maybe. But I also think that sometimes he can be a little too overprotective of draft picks and players. Now, I understand you don't really, in the NFL, you don't really see player for player trades. That's typically not something that often happens. But like, I mean, Jalen Phillips went to the Eagles for what, a 3rd round pick. He's been awesome for them. And I'm not saying they should have gone out and gotten a guy like Jalen Phillips, but it's easier for me to not criticize Jason Light as much for the trade deadline for one reason. And it's because, like, none of the linebackers got moved.
Yeah.
Like the Dolphins, they restructured Jordan Brooks's contract to move him, like to make it easier to move him, and then they didn't move him. And Jordan Brooks actually was like fantastic this past week. I think he was up for AFC Defensive Player of the Week. Really good for the Dolphins. But like something like that, but like Jordan Brooks didn't get moved. Quincy Williams of the Jets didn't get moved. So like I would have been a little more critical if like those guys went for 5th or 6th round picks and you're sitting there and we're like, yeah, we know what the problem is, but you don't want to seem to correct it. And I'm sure they did make calls, right? Every GM makes calls. I'm sure the Bucs talked to some teams about some guys. I'm sure Jason Light's not just sitting there in his office twiddling his thumbs when the trade deadline goes. Uh, but I do think that is something where because I like the draft, right? And that is the way to build a long-term sustainable winner, the draft. You have to draft and develop well. Without it, you will not. You're just not going to win consistently. And we've seen that, right? We've seen that plenty of times for the Buccaneers over the years. Like not drafting well has hurt them multiple occasions, right? That's why they basically after 2002 they were never a consistent football team because they simply did not draft well for over a decade. So at the same time though, like man, sometimes when you gotta give up a fifth round pick to get a guy, he's gotta do it. Like is he gonna transform your defense or transform your offense? Probably not. Like there's a reason he's available and he's only going for a fifth round pick at the trade deadline, but he can help, and they haven't done that. So yeah, I'm not like I said, I'm somewhere in the middle, right? I think he's overprotective of draft picks. At the same time, though, I get it. And hey, he's hit on his fair share of draft picks. So it's not like he's overprotective of him and he keeps missing. Like, that's one thing. Then you'd be like, well, why are you just not giving all these things away if you can't hit on any? So I like that he's not like the Rams, right? Like the F them pick. Sure, it'd be fun to cover. But like, there's different ways to do it. And the Eagles also like, everybody's like, well, the Eagles do this and that. The Eagles play the comp system, right? The compensatory pick system perfectly. They have multiple comp picks every single year. That's why they have flexibility to do that. So, um, we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening this off season. Does Jason Light finally decide to get a little more aggressive, right? Sort of seeing what he has, seeing what he doesn't have, right? I think, like, yeah, like you're hoping, like, oh, Braswell headed into year two, maybe he develops. Well, what about year three after year two did nothing, right? Like, you got your answer on Savasier Dennis now. Like, I'm curious to see what this offseason brings. So, yeah, a long story short, I think it's a little bit of both. I wish Jason Light would be a little more aggressive at times, but I also get why he is overprotective of those picks. And look, again, it's worked. So it's not like it hasn't worked.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much all those points. The one thing I would add is like you had alluded to it, but the mentality of we like our guys, we trust our guys. You have a trade deadline coming up. You have some injuries in key positions, and it's like, yeah, we trust our guys. Okay, you can trust your guys in the wide receiver room when guys like Sterling Shepard are playing as well as they have this year, right? Tez Johnson hitting the way that he has been a godsend. And then, of course, Emeka Ibuka speaks for itself when you want to get as many guys healthy on the field as they do. But, like, when Chris Braswell and Marquise Watts are, like, my supplemental edge rushers in a team that needs edge rushers desperately and seemingly can't keep a healthy one on the field, I don't love that. I think that, more times than not, Jason Light has we love our guys. I think that's been a detriment to this team a few times over the last couple of years. So very much like you said, curious to see how aggressive he decides to get. And my friend, curious to see how aggressive this Buccaneers defense decides to come out of the gate on prime time, Sunday Night Football against the Los Angeles Rams, the 8-2 Rams, who are one of the top teams in the NFC right now. This is a bit of a test, right? This is a 3-game stretch that we had talked about for the Bucs coming out of the bye week and wanting to play well. You are 0-2. Can they stop the bleeding?
That was good.
The synopsis that I have heard for this week, the game plan essentially is just die slowly, right? Don't come out and let them gash you for a 95-yard kick return touchdown like we just saw on Thursday Night Football. We don't need any historical moments like that. I would prefer to not see Matthew Stafford hit somebody over the top, or I would prefer really not to see a screen pass behind the line of scrimmage go for a 78-yard touchdown. I don't want any of that. Just die slowly. We don't even have to get into the final score, my friend. Do the Buccaneers?
No, let's do score predictions. We always do score predictions. What's so different about this? Come on.
All right. I don't know. Numbers I don't like the numbers right now.
You want to
What?
pick the Bucs, but
Well, yeah.
I feel like your head's saying one thing and your heart's saying the complete opposite.
Well, I'd like to know what you are saying about Sunday Night Football. How do you think the Bucs are going to fare? Is it going to be as bad as people are saying, or are the Bucs going to make it interesting? Is it going to be is it going to be a 13-9 final score?
I was gonna say something kind of similar to that, where like it seems like every time like this is gonna be a shootout. It's like that Detroit game, right? It's like oh man, there's gonna be fireworks and like no, there's not. Um, I feel like and also like every time like the Bucs they're gonna lose by 30. Like it's always like a close game, right? Um, you're traveling the West Coast and you're playing a prime. Again, I think the Rams are the best team in the NFL. Like I do, not just the NFC, the NFL, and the Bucs right now are not playing good football, and the Rams are playing arguably the best football they've played all season. Is there a potential though for the Buccaneers to catch the Rams on a little bit of a letdown because they just had this big matchup against Seattle? Big divisional matchup that was highlighted and circled for a couple weeks now. A lot of stuff, like and the Rams just barely squeaked it out. Like, is there a potential for a little bit of like a cool down for the Rams? I do think that, but ultimately, I don't think the Bucs gonna win this game. I thought the Bucs weren't gonna win this game in the season prediction show when we did it initially. I don't feel good about this game, and that was with me thinking they're gonna have Mike Evans and Bucky Irving and stuff. I don't think they're going to win this game. I do. They're not going to get blown out. I'll say Rams 33, Bucs 24. So they lose by 2 scores. Technically, they lose by 9.
Okay. I think it's going to be a weird game. I
just don't see this Bucs defense stopping the Rams. I just don't see it.
Yeah. I see them making a play. I said it a little bit earlier. I want to go out on a limb, and I want to say that at some point, they're going to generate consistent enough pressure to, I don't know how fatal of a mistake it will be, but I would hope that it is not a perfect night for Matt Stafford. And I do think that they are going to apply a little bit more pressure. Hopefully better than they did against Josh Allen in Buffalo, because if you give Matt Stafford as much time as you gave Josh Allen, it might be even worse. But I don't know. I have a weird feeling, very much like you said. I don't know if LA is just going to be overlooking Tampa Bay or if they're going to be caught in a bit of a lull here coming down. They did have some key injuries, have some players sidelined for the foreseeable future, put a couple of guys on IR this week. So somewhat shorthanded, but like, they're the best team in the NFL. I don't think those guys being shorthanded is going to change that by a large margin. With that being said, give me the Bucs to win it, man. I don't care what I said on the season prediction show. I don't give a damn what I said.
Really quick. There's no actually way you think they're going to win, but okay. If I put a lie detector to you right now, there's no way.
Give me the Bucs.
That dude's saying, "Yup, he's telling the truth."
Give me the
he
Bucs.
Wholeheartedly believes the Bucs are gonna go into the LA and beat the Rams. There's no shot.
Give me the Bucs in the worst game of the week. I don't know if this is scoregami, but it's just gonna be ugly. It's gonna be a nasty final score. Something you've quite literally never heard of. Give me the Bucs by 5 points. 17-12 is your final score on Sunday Night Football.
Okay.
I wish I had the scoregami guy on standby because I don't know if we've ever had 17-12. But
8-5.
Right. I'm telling you. Yeah, the last time
have it be a baseball score.
The last time these two teams played, it was like 13-6 or something. K. Dotton had his first career touchdown.
Yeah, it was I think 16-13.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the Bucs were. I was at the game. The Bucs were down, I think, 13-9, and Tom Brady threw to K. Dotton to win the game. I think 16-13.
There was like 8 seconds left.
Yeah,
and that was a nice win because 2022, while that was a season full of lows, I thought there were some wins. The Saints on prime time, they were able to get the last second game winning drive against New Orleans. Like there were a couple of good fun moments.
The Christmas one against Arizona was terrible, but you're like, it's Trace McSorley.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It takes a last second field goal to beat Trace McSorley.
Nobody wanted to win that game. That was brutal, but at least it was a win. I remember I got deathly sick after that game too.
from watching it.
Yeah, probably. It was Christmas Day that the Bucs played Arizona.
Christmas night. Yeah.
And
Christmas night.
yeah, for the next 2 weeks, basically until a little after my birthday, I was bedridden. I felt awful, so that game made me absolutely sick. Hoping we don't get more of that on Sunday Night Football, but give me the Bucs, man. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for today's game preview episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I want to thank you all for hanging out with us. I know we got Thursday Night Football happening at the same time, but you chose to sit in here and listen to a couple of yahoos talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we greatly appreciate that. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And, of course, Tampa Bay Buccaneer news as it happens. You can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs _ daily. What is wrong with me?
A mashup.
I know, dude. We just step back into the DeLorean there.
2018, baby.
Well, I'm thinking, so the reason it was on my mind is because you had a bit of an Instagram snafu over the last week or two, correct?
Yes. It is resolved now. But almost a week to the day, almost. Yeah, I actually had temporarily, I was hacked on my Instagram. If you follow my Instagram, it's Bucs _ daily, has over 26,000 followers, and I was hacked, and it was actually good that whatever the hacker did violated Instagram's policy or terms and conditions or something. Might have been, I don't know. I looked it up, like what could get you that to like suspend your account. It's like asking people for money or stuff like that. So it violated it. So they suspended my account. The hacker did not delete my account. Had he deleted my account, I am told basically there would have been nothing that could be done. Since my account was suspended, though, I was able to basically verify my identification that it was me and log back in, changed all my stuff, and I was able to, Instagram actually approved me and unsuspended my account. So yes, I do have it back, but for about 6 hours one day, it was something different. Yes.
I can't guarantee it was the same guy, but they tried to get me too. I got an email from Cannon Fire Podcast on Instagram, and it said, "Hey, we just got a request to change your password." I was like, "That wasn't me." So I went and took the following steps. But be safe out there, folks. People think that Instagram is an abandoned platform, and it is certainly not. They're trying to steal your stuff. But follow the show on social media. Follow Evan on social media. You can find him on Twitter at EvanNFL, and check out his written work at bucksnation.com. Last but not least, you can find myself Instagram and Twitter at Rhettakus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. And please check out this week's episode of the Rondé Barber Show. We do a fun little segment on there called Dr. Rondé, and he took a look at this week his top 3 remedies for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, provided some insight and his opinion on what the Bucs need to do to try and get things back on the right track, especially with the limited firepower, a lot of what we talked about today. Wow. We just had a ref carted off on Thursday Night Football. Sorry, I got distracted. I know we're literally ending the show, but we got a non-contact injury for referee Adrian Hill. Goes down in the end zone. That's brutal, man. You hate to see that on prime time. We know how much the referees love their time in the spotlight. That's the show. Right. Thank you again. Oh, man. Yeah, I hope he feels better. Thank you again, everybody, for hanging out with us. That's our cue to go ahead and end this thing. I think it's officially gotten off of the rails. I am your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off from my co-host, Evan Wanish. We will see you in the next one live after Sunday Night Football. Until then, and as always, thank you for listening, and go Bucs.